Aubrey. I am the drawing and painting instructor at GSA, and I'm really looking forward to working with your students this summer. I've been making art for about as long as I can remember. You can see a then and now self-portrait. I graduated from the University of Kentucky in 2008 with a degree in English and studio art. That was my senior show. For a couple of years after graduating college, I really tried to make art a full-time career. This is an image from a solo show, and I've lost all my pictures, so that's a kind of blurry image. But after a couple of years, that was not working out, and so I kind of gave up on making art a career of any kind. I continued to make art for the next couple of years, but thought I wanted nothing to do with it as far as a career went. But that all ended. I decided to go back to school to be a teacher. I wasn't entirely set on being a teacher. I thought I would give it a shot. The summer breaks were very appealing, but it turned out that I really love teaching. It's brought a joy to my life that I never would have expected. I especially love teaching high school students. You can see some projects we've done. I've been a teacher for 8 years now. In my own time, I make a lot of portraits. On occasion, not on occasion, that's the only pet portrait I've ever done, actually. I have been working since I was in college on the Growth Cycle series, which is large-scale paintings of natural organic matter. Basically, as long as they're in my possession, I keep going back and working on them. So once they get out of my possession, this piece right here was, it's in the University of Kentucky Hospital now, but then they are finished. There's some studio shots. And I also do commissions. I don't love commissions. They're very stressful to me, but there are business aspects of art as well. And I'm always continuing to learn. I take classes and workshops. In 2019, I took an intensive month-long atelier training in New York. I'm always taking classes locally when I can, and it's something that I hope to impart to your students. So I really look forward to meeting everyone this summer, and till then.
All right, my name is Matthew Gaddy. This is the story of my professional career that eventually transformed into a business called The Meadows Pottery. In 2003, I left my first graduate school experience pretty brokenhearted, not knowing really how I was going to continue to make work. And we had this photograph of this old barn on my farm, and my mother sent it to me with a note that said, "Someday this will be your studio." So this is kind of how I got there. Early on, I had a little garage that my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, let me use. And I built this little kiln on a cart that fired off a propane tank. And this is how I started my business. It was an $800 investment that over time blossomed into probably about $250,000 complex. So we'll go through it. This is my first kiln. This is me building it. You can tell I'm much younger with the longer hair and skinny. And so these are some of the pots that came out of it. They were pretty good. They were kind of commercially kind of successful at the time. Shortly thereafter, I got an opportunity to fire this wood kiln at Bernheim Forest and made some really great friends. And those friends, when this program kind of wound down, helped me build my kiln, and we'll get to that part of the story. But this is the Bernheim kiln. It's a 2-chambered Noborigama. This is us firing it. Some of the work that went into it. We used to fire it with some old wood flooring from a oak flooring factory in Springfield. These are some of the pots that came out of it. Some of these are just straight wood fired, and some of them are a wood soda combination out of the back chamber. These were pretty commercially successful. Sold these at craft fairs, outdoor craft fairs, mostly in a tent. And then around 2007, 2008, I had an opportunity to go fire with Simon Levin and his big Onagama in Wisconsin. And it really changed my life because Simon had this really unique conversation going on with the kiln about changing clay bodies and changing firing techniques and really honing in on something that was uniquely his. And these are some of the pots that came out of it. They were kind of critically successful. The watering can in the back there was accepted into Strictly Functional National, which at the time for me was a big deal. And they got accepted into a lot of pottery shows, like white pedestal gallery type of exhibitions. But it really inspired me to build my own kiln. So this is me building my kiln and kiln complex. You can kind of make out part of that barn in the background there that was in the original picture. This is us using the farm equipment and laying the concrete pad and dropping rocks, laying some of the insulating fire brick underneath of it. That crew that was my friends from the Bernheim kiln helped me build it. It took us about 8 weeks in the hot sun to build it. This is us laying brick and laying the arch in, the arch form. Had a buddy who was a commercial welder that came over and did some of the welding for me. I had a guy who was a rock climber that helped me put the chimney on. This is us burning out the arch. And then this is us firing the kiln for the first time. You can see pots going into the kiln there. There's my wife firing with us. It was about 7 below during this firing. You can see we had tarps up to cut down on the wind. And these are some of the first pots out of the kiln. This is when I kind of stopped doing outdoor shows and started transferring the business into more regional craft fairs that were big indoor exhibitions. And these were pretty successful. The bottom picture there was part of a exhibition that toured the world for Maker's Mark Distillery, and ended up these bottles are in a bar and gallery in Spain. And these are some of the pictures from some of the indoor booths that I had over the years, just to give you an idea of what a craft business looks like. You know, you kind of set up a little temporary marketplace and sell out of it. Here's one booth. Here's a booth a few years later when I was doing a little bit larger scale work, and those are some lamps I made for a lady, and was getting into a little bit more kind of architectural specific pieces. Here's a little example of a brochure from when I was doing these craft fairs, when retailers would come up and place a big wholesale order. This is what they would get. And eventually I had made enough money and been busy enough that it was time to kind of wind down being out on the road and doing those shows. And it was time for me to build a studio and a gallery of my own and get out of the garage. And this is that process. We tore that little barn down and built my studio and gallery. This is it going up. Some friends helped me put the siding on the back of it. That was after it was done, and I started to move work in. You can see the relationship to the kiln complex there. And then this is the studio a year later. I was completely moved in and was making pots in there every day, full time, 60, 70 hours a week. There's an example of a wholesale order that was going out to a gallery in Ohio, making some larger scale architectural work there. This is my gallery space. It's on the front of the studio. Bardstown's a pretty happening little tourism community. So we were getting some foot traffic there for a while, and things were good, selling work. And then my kind of, I guess, notoriety got to the point where I started doing more really gallery invited exhibitions. This is an example of one of my exhibitions in Maryland. This is another exhibition a few years later. And my kiln building business took off. After I built my kiln, I built one here for, a person in Louisville, and then I built one up in Chicago, and boom, boom, boom. Next thing I know, I'm doing gallery shows, and when I'm not doing gallery shows, I'm building kilns. It kind of all started in like 2009, and I think the kiln that I'm building at Hood College right now will be like number 42, I think. Either completely built or remodeled some there too. And here's some examples of my work. These are some T-bowls, some more T-bowls with the crackle chino glaze that I really love. Some tea glasses, nice little subtle brushwork. This is a big porcelain platter. In 2016, this work was selected to be the Governor's Awards for the Arts, and I had to make a dozen of these that were all very similar. And there was a big presentation at the rotunda there. It was pretty big deal for me. This is a chip and dip. They're about $225, and every time I make one, I sell one, but I haven't made one in a while. I need to get back on these. This is the beginning of my Etsy page. These are two little espresso mugs that I sell for like $25. And the example kind of images that I do for Etsy. Some more Etsy work. And then the gallery thing is kind of taken over, and this is an example of how I would display my work now in a gallery setting. This was actually at Governor School a couple years ago, and where kiln building and doing shows was a big part of my life. Now teaching's a big part of my life, and I got the job teaching at Governor School. This is from a few years ago, doing a project you guys are going to get into called East Asian Coil. This is me working on an East Asian Coil project. And after I was at Governor School, I realized how much I enjoyed teaching, and was offered a position at Hood College, or at Hanover College in Indiana, and have been teaching there. This is one of my students at Hanover. Doing an East Asian Coil project, and it's been a lot of fun. I've gotten the program up and running. We're building a wood kiln on campus right now, and I've realized that being part-time is probably ideal for me because it's allowed me to get back into the studio here recently. And these are some pieces that are recently out of my studio. These are going to a show in Owensboro called The Consummate Craftsman. So this is kind of my life now. I teach part-time at Hanover 2 days a week, and then I'm in my studio 3 days a week, and then in the summers I'm at Governor School, and I think that it's kind of good balance for me. And thank you for your time.
Welcome, class of 2021, to the GSA Visual Arts Program. My name is Susan Harrison, and I am so looking forward to working with you later this summer. I just wanted to spend a little time introducing myself and kind of telling you a little bit about what keeps me afloat. That's a picture of me actually in my gallery, Brick Street Art Studios in New Albany, and those are some of my abstract sort of ink drawings. I also want to talk about a little bit about what keeps me afloat. This has been kind of an ongoing metaphor I've used in my artwork for many years. First of all, I couldn't do it without my husband. He puts up with me leaving every year for 3 weeks in the summer to be with you, and he takes care of our animals and is just an amazing support system. So I just kudos to all the family members, mothers and fathers, parents and guardians and siblings who've helped you guys get to this point, please give them hugs and kisses from all of us. We are so happy that you have gotten into this program, but you've probably also gotten a lot of support along the way. My animals keep me afloat. I'm going to be really bummed not having them. I do have some great friends here at GSA that I've loved working with over the years. I also I have enjoyed having student teachers and working with all different students. I currently teach at Western High School in the JCPS system. I just live for working with young people and teachers. I love making big prints with students. I love putting on art shows. I love playing with art as well as working at making fine art. It's fun to experiment. It keeps me afloat seeing people curious and engaged with just playing and experimenting with materials. I absolutely adore the Governor's School. I've been teaching for over 15 years in this program. I absolutely love it. I really love working with former students and mentoring them. There's going to be a show called Transitions at Brick Street Art Studios in August, featuring some alum of the GSA program and alum of the Louisville Collegiate School, where I taught for years. I love being in nature. I love the fact my husband keeps a garden. I love plants and just being outside. I love being in a historic house and kind of renovating it. I love having art all around me. I love being silly and maybe acting out the art at times. I want you to be thinking about this too. What kinds of things do you collect? Maybe you haven't thought of yourself as a collector, but maybe this summer you'll start to think of yourself as an art collector. I spent 17 years in Burlington County, New Jersey, where I grew up in a pre-revolutionary town in a almost pre-revolutionary school. My school's over like 240 years old. I was really lucky, went to a small Quaker school, had great teammates, grew up in a big family, loved it, loved being part of the big family. I got to go to the University of Pennsylvania and study English literature there. I loved sports, but I also loved making art. I ended up at the Corcoran School of Art in downtown Washington, D.C. when my parents moved to England and earned my BFA there. And from there, I moved to Fort Worth, Texas, where I taught K through 12 art students for 4 years. And then I headed off to the University of Tennessee, where I earned my MFA in sculpture and printmaking. And then one of my first jobs after graduate school was teaching at the Chicago Art Institute in Chicago, and that is also where I met my husband. My question for you is, what do you value about your childhood, travel, or different neighborhood or school experiences? Merts and making do is a theme of mine. I love using up and repurposing materials and working with scavenged scrap materials. Kurt Schwitters has been a great inspiration to me, and his idea of merts. This is some of my merts. I love seeing what I can do with basically trash. I also appreciate the work of a lot of different artists, and I really love these people who fold paper. And Peter Callison is one of my mentors. And I love integrating 2D and 3D processes. So here are some of my woven prints that have become 3D sculptures. And I guess another question for you is, what art and artists inspire you? I'm hoping by the end of the program, you'll have a better sense of your lists of go-to artists and mentors. Not just contemporary, but also art from art history. I love collaborative and community projects, and these are my personal flotation devices that I basically ask people to wear and then ask them to think about what keeps them afloat, and then I put their words into their portraits. I also like mail art and portfolio exchanges. And it's fun to do projects about really important subject matter like the Holocaust. I like curating shows and developing the themes of shows. And so another question for you is, if you had to design a community-based project with a couple of friends, what might that project look like? So I love creating community space and opportunities. So I created Brick Street, and I basically transformed a neglected house into a gallery studio space. And these are the before and after shots. It was a lot of hard work. I was like the Pillsbury doughboy for 2 years. Lots of dumpsters came to the house. There's lots of stuff to do. So this is the transformation of Brick Street Art Studios. And my question for you is, if you had the chance to renovate or build a space, what might that space look like or serve as? Okay. I also serve on the Jeffersonville Public Arts Commission that has spearheaded urban renewal in the town of Jeffersonville, just across the river from Louisville. And that has meant a lot to me. And as I said, I really enjoy being a gallery owner who has shows. I've had shows that feature artists for the Louisville Photo Biennial, and also different print conferences and young emerging artists. So it's been fun. I've also had GSA alumni coffee houses at Brick Street. And I've had an art therapist rent the space. And anyway, another question for you is, how do you share your art or love of art with others? Okay, so what keeps me afloat is using my art and education to uplift my community and support others on their creative journey. And I can't wait to help you. And what kept me afloat during COVID was making all these sketchbook drawings and basically turning them into different designs and repeat patterns, which now I've actually printed onto blankets. So anyway, I will be asking you these questions again when you get to GSA, and I'll be asking you to journal about them. But in the meantime, I hope by sharing my story, it's encouraged you to think about your story. And I just can't wait to work with you. So thank you. I hope this was instructive about me, but not too boring. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Hey GSA. My name is Brian Somerville, and I'll be your instructor for sculpture. I wanted to take a few moments to introduce myself and my work. I grew up in Clinton, Indiana, a small rural town about 2 hours west of Indianapolis. After high school, I earned a BFA in art from the University of Evansville in southern Indiana, and then on to Florida Atlantic University for my MFA in art with a focus in ceramics. From FAU, I landed a 2-year residency at the Armory Arts Center in West Palm Beach, Florida. I would teach a few classes a week and spend the rest of my time developing my own work. I began to focus on ceramic sculpture and new ways to work big. My work also became more narrative with additions of mixed media, and I started using the surface of my sculptures as a canvas, obsessively carving symbolic imagery all over them. At the end of my residency, I moved back to Indiana to run a small ceramic studio at the Mary Anderson Center. I taught classes on the first floor and used the second floor as a studio. I also converted my garage at home into my first backyard studio. Having more uninterrupted time, my work became more detailed and complicated. Although teaching kept me busy, I started to get burned out and needed something different. I soon started working for a local construction company called Weber Group. Weber builds large-scale apartment complexes all over the country, but they also have a theming division that worked on creative projects for zoos, amusement parks, and water parks, like this castle for a pirate-themed water ride in Chicago, or this puppet show treehouse for a gift shop at the Columbus Zoo, or this 7-foot-long dragon head, or life-size elephant fountain, or 1/3 of a 100-foot shark that eventually got animatronics added and was shipped to a theme park in China. Around this time, I was introduced by a friend to Jono Osgener. Jono had started a meerschaum pipe company that evolved into a humidor company that evolved into a cigar company that he had recently sold and was looking to use the building and profits to start an art center in Nashville, Tennessee. He hired me as an in-house sculptor to enlarge small meerschaum pipes into large-scale garden sculptures. The sculptures eventually got bigger, and I was given the freedom to add some of my own artistic style. I also did architectural elements for Oz, like this shelving unit and this matching bar for their lounge. During Jono's pipe selling days, his best-selling pipe was the god of wine, Bacchus. So we designed this small maquette and later enlarged it to a 12-foot tall garden sculpture that still sits at Oz today. The best part of my position at Oz was that this 9,000 square foot warehouse was my studio. I worked at Oz from 9 to 5 on Jono's ideas and then stayed late into the night working on my own ideas. That year of late nights produced Shell Shocked, my version of A Tortoise and the Hare, and Barnstormer, my version of a flying monkey from The Wizard of Oz. As Oz began to grow into an art center, the warehouse was converted into a state-of-the-art performance space, and that space began to host events and international performances, making it difficult to do my own work in the evenings. So, with little money and a job with a questionable future, I decided it was a great time to build a 1,200 square foot shop in my backyard. By this time, my wife and I had 3 little boys to take care of. We decided we wanted to build a life where we relied less on other people and had more control on where we spent our time and what kind of work I took on. So we started our own fabrication studio called The Grit Shop. The basic concept of The Grit Shop was to take the wide variety of creative side work I was already doing and expand it into full-time work and a legitimate business. This kind of work included playgrounds with playhouses, outdoor musical instruments, interactive water elements with moving parts, and sandboxes that required me to learn how to do rock work out of concrete. The Grit Shop also included fabrications. I define fabrications as work that closely follows someone else's concept or design, like this theater set, or this 6-foot tall pink bunny for a concrete company, or this life-size fiberglass dog for another Nashville sculptor, or this 16-foot tall, 86-foot long curved wall for a South Korean muralist that does elaborate murals with electrical tape, or this set of commemorative mugs for Blake Shelton when he opened his Old Red Bar in Nashville. Grit Shop work also includes commissions. I define commissions a lot like fabrications, only I have a little bit more control over the idea and design, like this skylight sculpture for the Nashville airport to advertise the Bonnaroo Music Festival, or this carved mirror prop for a horror movie filmed in LA. The Grit Shop work also includes demonstrations. Some are more education-based, like this wolf for U of L, or this cat riding a dog for Blackberry Hill Art Center, New Hampshire. Some are more performance-based, like this 600-pound skull for the Nashville Public Library, or this fox riding a horse for an event at Churchill Downs. My favorite Grit Shop work includes collaborations. This is a sculptor and graffiti artist named Brandon Donahue. We did over 100 custom pieces for a fundraiser at Oz Arts and painted the last 12 platters live at the event using this crazy contraption we invented. This is Rebecca Alexander, a performance artist from Boston. I sculpted this 10-foot long bumblebee in an art gallery downtown, and she decapitated it during a performance at the opening. This is Corey Basil, a poet, illustrator, author, and painter in Nashville. We took one of his characters, Fish Boy, and created this 12-foot tall sculpture for an artistic miniature golf course in Nashville's minor league baseball stadium. I also have the chance to collaborate with companies. Tung Kenton designed Nashville's Convention Center, and Solomon Builders builds most of the structures at our zoo. They brought me in to design and fabricate the horns and nose for this Where the Wild Things Are themed playhouse. I've also worked within collectives like Tank 615. We proposed an interactive tank chicken to a local gallery, and they commissioned us to build it and display it downtown for a few weeks. My most important collaboration was with my oldest son, William. He invented a character named Froggy, and together we created a 16-foot tall interactive Froggy house for an immersive art exhibit. Sometimes grit shop work also includes public art. This was a 15-foot tall lion sitting on the back of 4 oxen. And this is a 9-foot tall arch for the city of Donaldson, Tennessee, located close to the Grand Ole Opry. Although the grit shop work keeps me busy, I'm also able to use what I've learned on my commercial work and apply it to my personal work, as with this series of self-portrait monkey busts, and this large-scale fiberglass bear head sculpture that went through many changes before it was finished. If you're interested, you can see more work at thegritshop.com, and if you have any questions about my work or what we have planned for sculpture this year at GSA, please reach out anytime. Thanks so much.